this explainer. Today, we are completely stripping away the cozy comforts of the modern world and diving headfirst into the raw, gritty survival science of ancient firecraft. We're going to explore the 6 primitive methods our ancestors used to conjure flames straight from the wild. Get ready, because we are getting up close and personal with the intense friction, the rising smoke, and just the sheer physical willpower required to survive. So I want you to start by asking yourself a very real question. Picture this. You're looking down at your own weathered hands. You're totally stranded. No matches, no lighter, absolutely no emergency kit. With nothing but the wood, stone, and earth immediately around you, would you actually have the foundational knowledge and the sheer sweat equity to survive the night? Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Chapter 1, the grind. Then Chapter 2, the scrape. Next up is Chapter 3, Percussion and Optics, and we'll wrap it all up with Chapter 4, Nurturing the Flame.
All right, Chapter 1, the grind. This is all about conjuring fire through rotational friction.
First up is the absolute classic, the hand drill. Okay, so you need a perfectly straight, dry stalk to act as your spindle, and a softer piece of wood for your fireboard. The technique requires you to intensely roll that spindle downward between your palms, generating an immense amount of friction against the board. As you grind, you're creating this fine, super hot wood dust that collects in a specially pre-cut notch. Eventually, with enough relentless downward pressure and speed, that dust coalesces into a glowing orange ember. I mean, it is pure, exhausting exertion.
Now contrast all that raw, blister-inducing exertion with some brilliant early human engineering, the bow drill. Honestly, this is a massive mechanical upgrade. By simply wrapping a cord or leather thong around your spindle and attaching it to a curved branch, you create a bow. You then use a hand socket, like a smooth stone or a hard piece of wood, to push down on the top of the spindle while you saw the corded bow back and forth. It drastically reduces hand trauma while spinning the wood incredibly fast. It's truly one of the most reliable ways to spark a fire.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, the scrape, generating heat through linear friction. This brings us to the fire plow. Historically used by Pacific Island cultures, this method demands absolute brute strength, just in a totally different way. You take a hard wooden dowel and forcefully saw and scrape it back and forth along a groove cut into a softer wood hearthboard. As you plow, you're physically scraping off tiny, highly volatile fibers of wood dust, pushing them to the end of the groove. You've got to continually increase your speed until the friction heat is so intense that the accumulated pile of dust simply ignites into a coal. Then we have another brilliant linear method, the friction stick, which actually has 2 main variations. You can use the fire saw method, where you rapidly draw the sharp edge of split bamboo or hardwood across a notched piece of wood. Or you can try the fire thong method, pulling a flexible rattan vine or wire aggressively back and forth underneath a stationary log. Whether you're sawing from above or pulling from below, this intensely concentrated friction creates a line of superheated sawdust that quickly turns into a life-saving ember. Let's dive into Chapter 3, Percussion and Optics, creating sudden sparks and harnessing the sun's rays. The actual science behind the classic stone and steel method, it's absolutely fascinating. Get this, it's not the stone that's burning, it's the metal. When the hard, sharp edge of a flint stone forcefully strikes a high-carbon steel striker, the percussion literally shaves off microscopic pieces of the metal. The sheer friction of that violent strike causes those tiny iron shards to spontaneously ignite in the oxygen-rich air, showering bright, incredibly hot sparks straight downward. Let's slow it down a second and contrast those violent, instantaneous, short-lived sparks with the absolute motionless patience of the lens method. This is purely optical. It requires absolutely zero physical exertion, but it does demand direct, bright sunlight. By using a convex lens, like a magnifying glass, camera lens, eyeglasses, or remarkably, even a clear balloon filled with water, you can condense the sun's solar energy into a tiny, ultra-hot pinpoint. Once focused steadily on dark, dry tinder, that concentrated solar ray can ignite a fire in just a matter of seconds. Hey, before we dive into the absolute necessity of capturing these fragile sparks, take a quick breather to like this explainer, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us which of these ancient methods you'd actually trust the most if you were stranded out in the wild. Your engagement really helps us keep creating these deep dives. Finally, Chapter 4, Nurturing the Flame, Essential Tinder. Now this right here, this is where so many survivalists actually fail. All that intense, smoky exertion, all those blistered hands and shaved iron sparks, they are completely useless without a proper nest.
You must carefully transfer your fragile, glowing orange coal into one of these 4 essential tinder materials to literally breathe it into a roaring flame. Dry grass is fantastic because you can easily shape it into a bird's nest that allows oxygen to feed the growing ember. Cotton is highly flammable and catches sparks beautifully, though it burns away fast. Char cloth is perfect for weak sparks, and certain fungi can actually keep an ember alive for hours. Let's look a little closer at those last 2.
To really elevate your survival science, we've got to understand a chemical process called pyrolysis. Sounds complicated, but it's basically just the pre-charring process used to transform ordinary plant fabric, like cotton, into char cloth. By baking the cloth in a low-oxygen environment, you remove the impurities, leaving behind a carbonized material that has an incredibly low ignition temperature. It is perfectly primed to catch those short-lived, microscopic iron sparks from your stone and steel.
Alternatively, nature actually provides its own incredible ember beds right off the shelf. Literally, shelf fungi. Specific types, most notably chaga or the horseshoe fungus, are absolute lifesavers in the wild. Inside their tough exterior lies a rich, velvety interior. If you can manage to get a single spark or ember into that velvety layer, it will cradle it and hold that smoldering heat alive for an incredibly long time without dying out. It allows you to transport fire from one camp to another, saving you the grueling exertion of starting completely from scratch.
Well, we've really explored the gritty, smoke-filled reality of ancient firecraft today. We've seen the raw power of the hand drill, the clever mechanics of the bow, the aggressive scrape of the fireplow, and the precise science of stone, steel, and solar optics. But the ultimate question to leave you with is this. Now that you know the theory, when the cold sets in and the wilderness truly tests you, will you have the sweat equity to spark the flame? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.